right, welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today I have Kirk Phelps. He is the regional GM at 5 locations of, different machine shops. He has a rich background. He started on the shop floor as a manual machinist and has grown into a career filled with, CNC programming, leadership, and mentorship. And he's got experiences that, go from aerospace, automotive to robotics. He's passionate about leading with integrity and teaching the next generation of manufacturers. He also served in the United States Air Force. Kirk, thank you so much for joining today.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now, from aerospace parts to injection molds and even military service, out of all of those, what has been the most valuable lesson that you've learned about leadership in manufacturing?
I just saw an image this morning that had several different leadership styles broken down. Like, what type of leader are you? And I feel like sometimes people want to put themselves into one spot. Like, I want to plug myself in here. This is what I am. But as I'm looking through it, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm kind of like this, and yeah, I'm kind of like that. Well, I'm kind of like this one too. So it's not like a one shoe fits all. And this shop environment that I'm in right now is a great example where every different shop has something different that they need, right? Like, we have one shop where the previous owner is staying with us for 3 years. I don't need to go hold their hand all the time. I don't need to worry so much about that. They've got a great leader there that ran a great business for many years, right? But then we've got other shops where, most of the staff turned over. We've got one guy that was there prior, right? So I got to be a little bit more involved there. So I think that's one of the big things is, one size doesn't fit all. You got to, even within singular organizations, you have different people that need different things, and you've got to understand some people may need that old school kick in the ass to get them going. Some people will walk right out the door if you talk to them like that. So it's just knowing your people. To sum it all up, it's knowing your people. You got to spend the time to get to know your people and figure out what they need and what motivates them is probably the biggest thing that I could say for sure.
I like that. So it's adjusting your leadership style kind of based on the different, I guess, functions within that organization. So you have to know the people, and then you can adjust your leadership style according to that, because it's going to be different from place to place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I worked for a place. Worked for a company once that it was true before they brought a machine shop in there. It was just a warehouse, and the way that people communicate back and forth to each other in a warehouse setting where you're just parts in, parts out, inventory in, inventory out, is very different than how you communicate to these technical experts in machining and things like that. And the warehouse manager there came out and, came at a couple of the machinists like aggressively with the way he was talking. And they came up to me and they're like, if he ever talks to me like that again, I'll quit. And I'm like, hey man, you can't talk to these guys that way, And I was like, it's not that you have to baby them, but it's just different. None of these guys have to be here. And that's a huge thing in manufacturing right now is everybody knows the labor market's tight, right? And so it makes it that much more important to understand your people and understand what they need and what motivates them and things like that, because they don't need to be there. I mean, they can leave tomorrow and go have another job right down the street. So yeah, makes it hugely important.
Yeah, and create that environment where you don't have situations like that, right? People are like, hey,
exactly.
I feel comfortable here. I want to. There's potential to grow, so foster, or create an environment that's allows that to happen.
Yep.
Now, you often talk about teaching over just telling, in the workplace. What's one way that you make sure the team learns to think for themselves?
As scary as it is, or as scary as it sounds, let them know. I know from personal experience how hard it can be to let people struggle when you know the answer, right? And I have twin daughters, and I have to do the same thing with them. I can watch them, ride their bike up and down the street time after time after time and say, stop doing that or you're going to fall. Stop doing that or you're going to fall. You know what? Fall. And then when they fall, they're going to go, wow, I should never do that again, right? Working is not much different. It's, you shouldn't, hey, don't tap a hole like that. that doesn't help anybody. You know, why should you not tap a hole like that? Right. And so it's two-sided. It's one, letting somebody learn, but it's also actually teaching, right? There's a lot of times that you just give somebody an answer, and it goes back to the old saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, right? So if you just give somebody the answer, you fix their problem today, but tomorrow they're going to have the same problem. So you've got to teach them, well, this is why you don't do that, or why this other way is better. Now you fix that problem forever. So that's number one. Number two is letting people learn. One of the things in this industry is there's always been this stigma that if you haven't been around for X amount of time or X amount of years, you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
How could you? There's a lot of really, really smart people here. You know, as a manager, as an owner, as a whatever, you want to hire smart people, right? So it's your job and beneficial to your business to let those smart people be smart. Let them figure their problems out. And you know, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it costs you money, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you learn at the expense of scrapping a part. So those are just things you have to be ready to manage and to deal with. But that's just the reality, and it'll pay off for you in the long run. You know, I've had plenty of times where guys have scrapped seven, eight, nine, $10,000 in parts, or God forbid, crashed a machine. But those are the biggest teaching moments. You don't forget that mistake. You know what I
Yes.
mean? When you crash a machine, when you scrap 10 grand or whatever, and you see this just pile of stuff here that you just screwed up, you will never forget that. You will never, ever, ever make that mistake ever again. And so, yeah, it hurts then. And I mean, I'm not advocating for doing that by any means, but you know, those are good lessons. And on top of that, everybody else around can learn from that same thing. And that's another huge factor, is making sure that information is disseminating. Like, look, you know, this called Pete did this. Let's make sure we don't all do that. It's not to make him look bad, but it's to make sure that we're all learning together, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that for sure, is making sure you get that information out to everyone on the team. And like you said, it's not to throw Pete in the spotlight and say, hey, Pete, this is what you did. It's like, no, we're all going to learn as a company so that moving forward, we can identify these situations and be proactive about it.
Yeah. One thing I really used to like to do when I was, you know, sitting in a singular shop all the time was we would have a production meeting every week. Some weeks they were 10, 15 minutes long. Some weeks we'd be in there for an hour. And we
Mm-hmm.
would go through everything. You know, what did we do last week? What do we have coming up for this week? What's happening in the next month? That does three different things. We review what happened last week, so everybody that had those little lessons, we can all pick up on that. And then future planning, this is what we have this week, so this is what you guys all know what to work on. But next month we've got X, Y, and Z coming in, so be prepared because we're going to be really busy. And then we would go over, of course, like a safety topic or something, but then two process improvement suggestions. And I was really big on the young guys, the guys early in their career. Like, I want to hear what you think, because if you give me suggestions, that tells me that you're engaged. That tells me you're
Yes.
thinking about what you're doing and understanding what you're doing. They may not be good, you know, and I'll tell you why. If they're, you know, if they're not good, we'll talk about it and we'll make sure that's understood. But you know, that helped. And then our MRB, our material review boards, where we would like review all the scrap for a
Mm-hmm.
week or for a month period or whatever. Well, sometimes things happen. I don't know, this insert wore out and burned the part, or the finish wasn't good or whatever. Cool. But if we see like a trend of, hey, we scrapped 5 of these parts every day in this run, what's going on? Well, then we do a little training right there of, guys, what, brainstorm with me. What happened here? You guys ran it. Show me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, sometimes people don't want to do that because they don't want to stop production. But like I said before, it's valuable. It's a 10 minutes of production here for maybe 10 minutes a week. You know what I mean? Between multiple people, that could be having the same problem, but now you just got them all together and you fixed it. And now you don't have to worry about that anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too because it's almost training them to use critical thinking. So now when they're on the shop floor and that problem happens, that could potentially save you thousands or, you know, just by doing those exercises. Yeah, maybe it is 10 minutes a week, but that adds up, I think, over time because you're giving them that capability to think critically through some of these situations.
Yeah. And, one of the big things, another Achilles heel of this industry for a long time has been I know how to do something, I'm really good at it. It's a secret. I can't tell anybody about it because if I tell them, they're going to take my job. Now I'm not valuable here anymore. And like sitting where I sit now is I want everybody to know how to do as much of my job as possible because if I do that, that gives me time to focus on other parts of my job that I'm not able to do, right? Or
Hmm.
to, as a programmer, when I was programming, it was if I can get somebody to learn how to do this, I can ascend. I can move up to, managing the production, managing ops, general manager, whatever, right? And so trying to change that mindset to look, nobody's going to take your job because they know how to do this one thing. It's actually going to do the exact opposite, and it's going to give you a better job now because you've trained that person on how to do that, right? And so that's kind of been a disconnect in this trade is that there's been no upstream downstream communication between the guys on the shop floor because there's a hierarchy on the shop floor, and when you got the guys here and the guys here on the floor, these guys don't talk. It's like, get out of here. And I think it's gotten better through time, but when I started, that's yeah, you
You
were
wouldn't even talk at that
yeah,
to the yeah.
don't even look at me.
Well, it's awesome to hear like things are changing too, and I appreciate all the hard work you're putting in and the leadership skills that you're passing down. That's really important. So, thank you so much, Kirk, for joining. For those of you watching, stay tuned for more insights from experts like Kirk. Thank you so much, Kirk.
We'll take it.